Hello and welcome to the MG EVs podcast, streaming live on Monday, the 2nd of May, 2022. We're here to talk about all the MG electric vehicles, hoping to inform and entertain you for about an hour or so. But looking at our running order tonight, I think it'll be an hour and a bit, certainly. I'm Dave Stewart, Dave S on the forum. I drive a ZS and waiting for a new ZS, which we'll be speaking about later on as well. And joining us this week are in South Wales, Mike Fisher.
Hi, username Fish to Bean on the forum, and my car is there.
Very good. Also from Crawley, Steve Green.
Hi, Steve is Green on the forum, and my car is there.
Right, good. I wish I could do that, but I'll have to get a background, guys. Also, a big welcome to Barry Hager from Essex. Barry, your first time, welcome.
Thank you. My name's Barry Hager, and my name on the forum is Barry H. And I drive that thing behind me, the red one, in the right colour.
Good, good. Oh, don't get the colour things. Goodness sakes. We all know white's right. And from the Charlie Group in Lancashire, Miles. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Miles Roberts CG on the forum, and I've driven most of the MGs that we have. So several MG5, several ZS EVs.
And Les, great. And from Wigan, Les Burrows.
Les is still connecting to audio. I think he's having some technical difficulties at the moment. We'll see. Oh, Les.
Les. We can see Les as soon as he sorts himself out, he'll join in. That's good. If you're watching live, thank you very much for joining us. I've seen some really nice messages. We haven't been on the last few weeks, and some nice messages saying that folk are really looking forward to the Monday night chat again. So please click the like button and join in the discussion in the chat windows. Certainly we'll be having a look at that and picking up on anything anybody wants. I will say it is quite a hefty running order we've got today. So if we don't manage to get picked up on your item, we'll certainly have it for the next podcast. But if you're watching later, thank you for choosing to watch us or watch the video, and please subscribe and get a notification for when we go live the next time. So as I say, in tonight's podcast, we're chatting about quite a few things. We're going to be speaking about the extended lead times on the ZS EVs in the UK and what factors are impacting that. We're going to be looking at the stop of MG5 orders from last Wednesday onwards in anticipation of the facelift. Miles will tell us more about that. We'll also be speaking about over-the-air updates for the new ZS EV. And when certainly, Miles, you were at the Fully Charged show, if we could get an update from you about that as well. And again, if anybody else was at the Fully Charged show, be keen to pick up on whatever we thought of that. One of the big things we're going to have to pick up on is the utility rates and also public charger prices increasing. There's some rumour mongering about the MG4, and we'll pick up on that as well. And certainly wanting to hear about Mike Fisher's road trip to Disneyland Paris in his EV. So that's quite a busy lot we've got. So hopefully we'll get through all of this. So can I just go back to you, Barry? Welcome aboard. I've seen you in the chat. Many's a meeting. It'd be really good if you could just say to everybody a wee bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure.
And we can see the car you drive.
That's right. Okay. So, yeah, thanks very much for inviting me along to the forum this evening. I've been in and out of EVs for the past 10 years, starting off with a Leaf, just on short-term loans and things like that. So I've driven a number of them. And the ZS EV that you see behind me is the first one I've really owned for any particular length of time. I did have a Nero before that, but that was a very, very short period. And I figured that I could better use the £10,500 price difference in my bank than driving it around and sitting on my drive. So that's why I'm in the EV. Great value for money. I've loved every minute of having it. The only mods I've done to it is tints, and I've got dark tints around the back, half the car, and I've got special heat film on the front, which means that it doesn't look like it's tinted, but it actually stops the heat, which is brilliant stuff. And I chose not to upgrade at this point to the extended range, and I'm spending the £10,000 I'm saving, putting solar PV on and a battery storage system, and I'm waiting for that to go in shortly. So that's me, and I am active, as you say, on the forum, both when we do the podcasts and during the week. Yeah,
no, it's great to see and hear from you, and hopefully you become a regular contributor, Barry. Good to see you. And Les, are you speaking to us yet?
I am. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you loud and clear.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad of that.
We've also got
It's that long since we've done this. I forgot how to plug all this thing in.
we've also got your prison number, I think, in the bottom left-hand corner.
I don't know where that's come from. I might be the way I've logged on. Sorry about that. Then.
Great, right.
I ain't going to try and shift it now. She'll probably lose it altogether.
Yeah. Great. So welcome everybody. So let's kick off. As I say, I have got a ZS EV. I am waiting for the new long-range ZS EV, and I, like many other folk, am getting, must admit, very well informed, but sadly emails saying it's going to be another month, it's going to be another month, and I'm hoping end of August, September is the latest I've been given. Miles, do you want to, I know you've got a bit of a croaky throat today, and we'll try and protect you, but do you want to sort of come in with some of the key factors that are impacting delivery?
Yeah, so there's been basically an awful lot of issues with all car supply across all manufacturers. The semiconductor shortage is one of the ones which has been most widely known about for a long period of time. So basically, prior to the pandemic, one of the largest semiconductor manufacturers in Japan had its factory devastated by an earthquake, which then meant that the production had to be shifted to other plants, and they were then strained. And then over the course of the pandemic, that prevented repairs being done or new factories being built. And so we haven't really got up to full speed with that. So semiconductors are short. In addition to that, it was relatively recent war in Ukraine. So the Ukrainian country is home to an awful lot of crops and everything else, but it's also one of the, and I didn't realize this before, 53% of the world's wiring harnesses for cars are made in Ukraine, or should we say were made in Ukraine, because obviously they've not been able to have production for the last couple of months. So because there's half as many wiring harnesses being able to be made for cars, that's pushing prices up, and it's also meaning that lead times are extending and doubling. And obviously, if your manufacturer, let's say SAIC, was getting exclusively wiring harnesses from a supplier in Ukraine, then they have to have brand new agreements with firms in other countries. They have to negotiate prices and everything. That can cause increase in prices, obviously, at a time when everybody else is trying to do the same thing. So the lack of wiring harnesses is a new issue. As well, the gas that they use in the manufacture of semiconductors as a coolant is primarily found in Ukraine and Russia. So that means that there's therefore also strangles on that supply, which then exacerbates the semiconductor issue. And also, there's been a general problem with getting stuff shipped around the globe, because when there's a war, that means that some things can't take the track they usually take in terms of, you know, getting goods around the planet. And there's also been another upsurge in coronavirus in China, and Shanghai's had a 3-week lockdown. So basically, if you can imagine every bad thing that could possibly happen in terms of impacting on car supply, it's happened and is happening. And that's why cars are having very extended lead times. And it's part of the nature of a car now is that, you know, the car might be built in China, but parts are manufactured all across the globe. In the same way as when the Nissan Leaf made in Sunderland, parts of that car are made in Japan, some parts are made in America, some parts are made in Russia, some parts are made all over the place. And that's the nature of, you know, car supply. Car manufacturers buy, for example, wiring harnesses from this company in Ukraine because it's the best at doing them, it's the most adaptable, it's the best price. And it's not the sort of thing that you can just say to somebody else, okay, well, can you start knocking us up a wiring harness tomorrow, because it's different. Also, with regards to cost of vehicles going up, and the inflation we're seeing generally around the world at the moment, battery packs, the SAIC has its own battery plant and manufactures its own batteries in that plant. However, it doesn't actually mine the materials itself. It gets the raw materials from the world market, of which Ukraine and Russia are a big supplier of certain items which go into lithium-ion batteries. So again, this war is having obviously a devastating effect on the people in Ukraine. We're very, very sorry about that. But also it has a knock-on consequence around the world for everything else. So to put into context, at the moment, the vehicles which are most badly hit in terms of supply lead time are the ones with the highest specification, because they tend to have more semiconductors in them than otherwise. So your Trophy Connect is less likely to get its parts compared to a Trophy or an SE, if we're talking about the new ZS. And battery packs, anything with the bigger the battery pack, the more raw materials that needs. That means that SAIC, I think typically SAIC now are prioritizing, if they can make 2 standard range cars pretty much for the cost with the available supply compared to 1 long range car, they'd rather make 2 cars. So in the same way with the higher spec vehicles, if they can make 2 SEs compared to 1 Trophy Connect, it would be in their interest to make 2 cars rather than 1.
That makes sense.
So the problem is that all those people like me who ordered a Trophy Connect long range at MG in November are finding that those cars haven't arrived. And you may have seen quite a lot of people have taken delivery of standard range trophies or standard range SEs, or maybe even a long range SE. But the top spec, the long range Trophy Connect, people aren't getting them because we just can't get the bits to make them, basically. And those, you know, any bits that are coming in are being farmed out to make multiples of other cars. So the UK, and I do know that SAIC and MG have been holding back some supplies from other countries to try and divert stock to the UK. I've got a friend who runs the MG import business in Barbados, and they have an order of 300 MG ZS EVs that they basically have knocked back because they use those cars for UK. Even though they have the order in for months and months and months. So, you know, they are getting the cars here as much as they can, but it's difficult for all concerned. So those of you that are waiting, I've seen that there's been quite a few people on the forums asking questions specifically, like what's happening. Nut has asked on the forum, are some dealers being prioritized over others? Not to our knowledge. So what Nut was saying was that basically some dealers have been putting in fake or spoof orders to try and make it so that they had cars available on the ground to sell. So let's say you have, I don't know, 50 actual customer orders, but you order 60 cars and those 10 spare ones all ordered in the name of Joe Blogs. When they finally came in, you were going to say, okay, well, we know we've got those 10 cars coming. They've been ordered early on, so they'll arrive early. And then when the customer walks in January, we say, okay, well, we've got this car, which is due next week. You know, you can have this one, rather than placing a factory order, which may be months down the line. MG cottoned onto this fact because it wasn't just 10 cars from some places, and it wasn't, you know, it got to the point by the end of February, MG had orders on its system for 30,000 cars, which was the entire number of cars it was expecting to sell all of 2022. So 2 months in, we've taken 30,000 orders. Well, the order book hasn't jumped that much. People were obviously placing massive amounts of bogus orders. So what MG said was, we'll have an amnesty. You can cancel all of the orders that are not real up until this date. And after that date, if you order a car for Joe Bloggs and it doesn't get registered to Joe Bloggs, then we will fine you £1,500 per car. Now that's like way more money than we actually make on a car when we sell it. So it would effectively cost us to sell that car. So that was the so we kept a stick approach with dealers. So saying, okay, you know, if you've ordered, you know, 10 cars for Joe Bloggs, but you haven't got 10 people called Joe Bloggs, you're going to have to cancel those orders off. Which I think, you know, makes it fairer for everybody else. So, you know, potentially the queue has gone from, say, there being 30,000 orders, and that's petrol and electric. That's not just the ZS EV. I don't, before anyone misquotes me. But the we've potentially gone from, say, 30,000 orders down to 15,000, which is still an awful lot, but it's a lot less than before. And it means that effectively, you know, we've got MG have got better visibility of what the actual orders are and what cars they need to prioritize in terms of getting the cars out. Because if you thought you had an order for 500 red ZS EV long ranges, and it turns out you only need 50 of them, then it means that you can, you know, you don't have to worry about producing loads and loads of cars that aren't actually sold. So, so that's why.
Well, at risk of losing our viewers in Barbados, if one of those cars that's diverted is the one I get, great.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of their cars were white or silver, to be fair, because of they don't like having dark coloured cars over there. So
right, okay, no.
With that was Nutnut's question, and he says, how is the information on order status disseminated by MG to dealers? So basically, we have a big order system, and it's a bit like a spreadsheet. You can sort of see, you know, you see your order number, you see the car or details, whatever, the customer name, and then you have a planned date of when it would arrive. And that date is defaulted by the system to basically be about 12 weeks out from today, so 3 months out. And the idea is once they've matched that to a car that's coming into the country, they then update that date and it gives you a more firm delivery date. So it goes from being, rather than saying just August, instead it would come forward and say 27th of July or whatever. Well, to give you an idea, at the moment we've got about 200 ZS EV orders, and we've got 2 with delivery dates that are actually firmed up. The rest of them just cycle on a day. Every day, different day you go onto it. So we don't really know what cars are coming until usually about 2 to 4 weeks before the cars actually land. So when the cars arrive in the UK, that's when MG UK actually then starts allocating to dealers. And it will start sending them out to, you know, it will start saying to us, for example, okay, you've got 5 cars. So we'll suddenly see dates on 5 of those lines. And it'll just say transport instructed, which means it's going to get a transporter to take it from the port to the dealership at some point in the next week or 2. But that's when we know. So we don't know when it's built. We don't know when it's manufactured. The only thing we would know is once MG UK update that system, and we'll see a VIN number and a delivery due. So it's a very, very short window that we actually know when the cars are on the way.
Yeah. I'm glad you've said that, because I understand the system better now. I've seen 1 or 2 threads on the forum of folk losing patience with their dealership, or feel that they should have got more phone calls back and things like that. And I didn't jump on that bus because I thought it must be difficult for dealerships just now. You must be dealing with scant information and dealing with customers who are getting frustrated or just impatient. So I suppose in some aspects, yes, let's cut our dealerships a bit of slack. If they've been naughty and they've screwed up your order, then maybe not. But yeah, it's.
Yeah, I think the thing is that, so as I'm in the same boat as everyone else. So I ordered a silver Trophy Connect long range back in November when the order books opened on day one. And I've not got any chance of seeing where that is, when it's coming. There have been other deliveries of other ZS EVs that weren't ordered. We had a tranche of standard range trophies that arrived in the country in January, February, which were handed out to people. So you see a lot of people driving around in facelift cars, and you think that's not fair. They've literally walked into a showroom and picked up a car a week later, and it's just because they've gone with the car that was there. But of course, as well, the problem we've got as dealers is that normally, if we had a car come in, let's say for example, you use you as an example there, Dave. So you ordered a ZS EV Trophy Connect in
blue.
But let's say we got a Trophy Connect in white. Normally, we'd go to you and say, Dave, I know you ordered a blue one, but we've got this white one spare. Would you like it? And you'd say, yes, for example. And then we would register the car to you. But we can't do that because the grant situation changed in the 15th of December. So if we were to re-register you with a different car, you might lose that grant, for example. Or if you went from, not with the colour perhaps, but if you went from a Trophy Connect to a Trophy, you'd lose the grant. But now also with MG putting this memorandum on about if the car changes owner, then they're going to fine us £1,500. That means that if if somebody decides to change their order, we've got to cancel that, and then MG allocate that to somebody else rather than us. The only way that we would have to be able to reallocate it is if the car came into our property and the customer, if the car was delivered to us and then the original customer cancelled, we'd then have to call MG and say, look, this customer genuinely hasn't progressed. Here's the order form to confirm it. Here's everything else. Please don't fine us £1,500. Can we sell this to the next person in our queue for this car? And we'd have to have that argument, but it's not necessarily that they would say yes straight away, because they may well say, well, no, actually, because such and such who ordered his car from Nathaniel's in Cardiff has been waiting longer than your customer, so we're going to pick that car up and take it on transport down to him. So it's a real tough situation for us at the moment. We've got so little flexibility in what we're able to do. Because again, I would have swapped my Trophy Connect order for a Trophy had I known, but because of the grant situation, it cost me an extra £2,000 to switch down a grade. So I'm not going to do that, but and as well, with all of the cost increases we've had, so as well as the grant situation, the actual cost of the car has increased in January and again in April. There's been an extra sort of £500 on the cars due to material costs increases that MG have had since the car was put in order. Mm-hmm. So it's a difficult situation for everyone, and I think that that is something we're going to have to try and manage it ourselves, in terms of our expectations of when things are coming. If you'd ordered if you'd ordered a sofa and it's, a 16-week delivery date, and then something happened and they had to extend, you'd be annoyed because you're expecting a new sofa. You'd be really annoyed if you'd already sold your sofa expecting it to arrive on that date. And I know there are some people out there who sold their existing car to Kazoo or whatever else, thinking that they were going to get a better deal by trading it in early, so that before the prices dropped. But this is just totally out of the dealer's hands. We're not doing anything. We don't get paid until the cars are handed over and registered. So it makes no sense at all for us to mess customers around. It's only a case of, we want the cars to be out there as well. We're just fighting this, as a big supply chain issue.
Miles, I guess, looking at some of the comments on the forum about this situation and people bitching about their dealers, going anywhere else, all dealers have got, from any brand, have got issues with supply. So what's to be gained? You better to stick, bird in the hand is better than two in the bush.
Well, that's it, yeah. And as well, we're seeing, so on all car supply. So it's like I ordered a Kia EV6 in December with an expected delivery date of March. And I've now been told that that car might not arrive till Christmas this year. So a very similar sort of, with the original ZS orders, we were, ordering in November, expecting them sort of January, February, and then they'd still not arrived. Well, I say, the Koreans have got the same issues as everybody else as well. So the Kia EV6, that's been delayed massively. What else did we order? There's some other cars that we've ordered recently that are just all the delivery dates have gone completely out the window.
Must be across the whole board, is it, Miles? Just every manufacturer, surely.
Friend of mine's just only this last week took delivery of a Peugeot 3008, I think it is, what's your numbers? It's an hybrid anyway. And he was promised that in October last year. And it just arrived this last week.
I'll tell you what it is. So one of my mates ordered a new company car. He was supposed to get a BMW i4 as a company car, and he ordered that last September for delivery in March this year. And he's now been told it's probably going to be after September, maybe. So at this stage, it could even be next year. They just don't know. So the delivery dates and anything that we are saying to customers at the moment is in the best possible way, because we're only giving information as we've been given it. So
That's the question, Paul.
Yeah.
If somebody went into your showroom 2-3 months ago and ordered the long range ZS, for example, and the price that they perhaps paid a deposit, a small deposit, and then they agreed a price of £32,000, whatever it was, for the Connect. You said there's been two price increases since.
Yes,
Would they be carried on? The shelter from that one's been paid.
The customer sheltered from those. So that's one of the things as well. So that's one of the things as well. MG wants to hand these cars over to the early customers as soon as possible, because every month they wait, there's inflation.
Yeah.
So every month the cars are costing them more to produce. And these people who placed the orders ages ago, like Dave, were very lucky to get A, the grant, and B, to get a lower price than there is today. So they want to get those cars out and handed over and out the way, so that they can then start making a bit more profit on the cars that on the customers that they've paid slightly more for the car. It's tough. Nobody, and I don't think that any of us could have foreseen the Ukraine war and the knock-on effect that would have, and likewise with the pandemic. So it's not good. But I say also, MG UK has no control over what SAIC manufacture. SAIC just manufacture the cars that they've got parts for. So if they happen to be short of cloth interiors, for example, then they'll make a whole lot of trophies. If they happen to be short of certain semiconductors, then they'll make them more SEs. So it's just, we've not got the control over that. And it might also be, if you look on a global scale, there might be a push to do certain markets at certain times, because there may be, like us, there might be grants that are ending in certain countries that they need to get the cars handed over there before the grants expire, things like that. So it's, SAIC don't manufacture the cars for the UK market as and when they come in. They do them in batches, because they're right-hand drive rather than left-hand drive like the rest of the world. So, and sometimes it's like, well, if they haven't got enough bits and they can, then they might just keep the production line going on left-hand drive a bit longer. So it's, having said that, from what I gather from our friends in Europe, they haven't been falling over new ZS EVs over there either. So I think that there is a real stranglehold on all supply at the moment.
Extraordinary times we're living in.
Yeah. So just as all the MG dealerships were sitting there buffing their nails thinking life can't get any easier, last Wednesday you got the instruction to stop taking orders for the MG5. Is that correct, Miles?
Yeah, so obviously what we really like in the times when supply is short is people walking into the showroom and saying, can we buy that car? And us telling them no. So the MG5 has had 2 changes since its inauguration. So it's only been out a couple of years in the UK, but we've had the long range, first of all, which has come to us now, the facelift. Now, the facelift model was unveiled for Europe last year, and deliveries are starting from about now. I think the last month or so there's been deliveries. I saw our friend Pat did a review of the European version fairly recently. And MG UK has taken so many orders, so many forward orders on the current model MG5 that they've decided to stop taking orders now, because effectively they know when they can, how long they've got until they stop building them, and they won't physically be able to build any more past that date. So the MG5 order bank is closed, so we can't take any orders for that. We also can't take any orders for petrol HSs, not that matters on this forum, but and the MG3 is a bit thin on the ground. So basically we can sell the ZS EV for Jalemba, and that's about it really. So yeah, we're a bit stifled as to what we can actually sell. Having said that, the new facelift MG5 due for launch unveiling, I think Q3, for arriving in showrooms Q4 2022. The car looks great, looks fantastic. The interior looks great. Real increased improvement in how it's all laid out and how modern it looks, I think. I would be keen to see if the new light grey leather interior makes it across the UK, because I think that looks quite good actually on some of the video reviews I've seen from Pat, for example. I think that would be an option that people may choose in the UK. It's not traditionally, you know, I think that in the UK we're sometimes a bit worried about choosing colours other than black for interiors, but I think it looks quite good in that light grey, that sort of light beige
I
colour.
think it looks lovely, that light grey.
Yeah, and interestingly, when we did the red leather option on the HS in the UK, that was it was probably 60% red we sold with the red interior. Sorry, so I do think that, you know, people are perhaps keen to try something a bit different, and I think the MG is a brand where people have had fairly leery interiors in the past historically with MG. At the car club I was at today, there was all sorts of tartans and red leather and all the rest of it. So I think that, you know, certainly a light coloured leather is, or leatherette is an option, would be well received. And then we've got hopefully some news coming about the MG4 later this year. As a bit of a gun jump, but because I know that was later to discuss later on. But
Yeah.
the MG4, we haven't got a price for, we haven't got a date for it, but we have seen some new spy shots from the UK. We've heard some rumblings to like Auto Express and Car Magazine. They're talking about the MG4, and it looks like it's going to be a good car, sort of ID3 sort of sized. Now, one thing I've heard from my contact in Barbados is he's actually been able to place an order for MG4 already, but he's not going to see the car till next year. But he's ordering MG4, and he's been told the pricing is about 20% less than the ZS, spec for spec. So if that's the case, I think that it's favourable. It's hopefully favourable for the UK market that the pricing for that model should be where we'd like it to be, probably starting low to mid 20s, which I think it should do very, very well at. You know, the ID3 starts sort of £30,000 plus, and you can spec it nicely up to about 40. I think that if you get the MG4 starting earlier than that with a similar sort of size and perhaps better range, it'll do very well indeed. So that's a car we're looking forward to selling when we can.
Okay. that's probably answered part of Paul Davis' question. He's was wanting an update on the MG5. A couple of folk are saying, and I think you have already stated, Miles, but if you put in a bona fide order for the ZS before the price increase and before the grant, MG are honouring that, aren't they?
Yeah, MG honour the price on the car that you're buying. Now, Heather's asked, we've used our current car as part exchange. Am I right in thinking our agreed price for our car stands, given we're adding more miles to it? Not usually. So part exchange valuations are usually only valid for 30 days, and it's subject to the car being in the condition it was appraised in. Obviously, if you were to incur some damage to your vehicle between now and then, if you were to do significantly more mileage, it will have a material effect on the value of the car. And where these delays are outside of the hands of the dealer, it's not reasonable for them to stand. You know, if I priced your car up in November last year, and here we are in May, and you've still not done your part exchange, you know, you've done, 6 months of driving in that car. Yeah. It's not reasonable that the car should be valued the same as it was 6 months ago, because it's not. The car's not worth what it was 6 months ago. Yeah. Having said that, if you had it on some sort of finance agreement or PCP type thing, then you'd be making monthly payments every month towards that. So your finance payout would have been reduced, and therefore, the amount of equity should stay the same, if not more. If you were a cash customer, then you're going to take a bit of a hit, I guess, but then your car that you're buying is going to be 6 months newer than it would have otherwise been as well. So it's going to be, you're not going to be out of pocket in terms of depreciation that way. So have to speak to your dealer if you're not sure on that. But I would say that our usual thing is that valuations are valid for 30 days, and then they're re-evaluated according to current market guidelines.
Yeah, I can't speak. I can only speak about the dealer I'm working with, and they've been very good at telling me exactly that we valued your car at the day we discussed it, and that value will not remain the same. It'll diminish. So I'm ready to take a bit of a shock on that, which
it shouldn't be too much. The used values are still very buoyant. They've dropped slightly from where they were in, say, November last year, but this extended period of no deliveries for cars means that they're not dropping very far at all. So yeah, no, I think you should still all be okay.
Is that maintenance of used car values? Are you seeing that across ICE as well as EVs?
No, some ICE cars have dropped quite a bit. Qashqai's dropped about £3,000 since November for a 2-year-old car. So yeah, there are some vehicles which are not weathering the storm as much, particularly with the petrol price increase and things like that. Some people are looking more at, if your petrol is obviously costing a lot more than it was before. Those cars which are not as efficient are not weathering the storm as well. If you're in a hybrid, usually okay. Hybrid, plug-in hybrid electric have been fairly good on price. Your diesels, your petrols. I mean, diesel, the bottom's dropped out of the market pretty much for new diesel anyway. And so there are some cars which are booking the trend, things like, Land Rover Defenders and so on, which, continue to do well. But on the whole, it's mainly the electrified models which are holding the value better.
Okay. I see Jeff Cartwright saying that is there a problem with some of the new spec ZSs at chargers?
Yeah, so Jeff's mentioned this, and this was brought to my attention last week by a customer who hasn't had the issue themselves, but they've seen it about on the forum and they're concerned with their own car. Before MG launches a car in the UK, it does try every single network in the UK with its cars. So it goes to a rapid charge of every single different network and makes sure it all works. And they don't launch the car until they've done so. And I met the guy who his job was to literally drive. When we had the original ZS EV, he was down at Gaydon when they unveiled the car, and at the EV festival. And he basically said, look, my job's been to drive the last 3 months, drive like 12,000 miles in this car every day, rapid charging it on every different network I could find to make sure that it worked okay. So with that sort of level of testing, over and above what the CCS standards say in the book or whatever, the fact that they do actually test it on the UK networks means that this sort of problem shouldn't really happen. But I have seen some people, there's a couple of people have said that they had problems with an Osprey charger in Cornwall, and somebody else has mentioned that as well. I've not had any issues. I use the ZS EV, both long range and the standard range, and rapid charged a few times across different networks. I've used GridServe, the old Ecotricity chargers. I've used InstaVolt. I've used Shell Recharge. What else do we use? BP Pulse. And I think that Eon. I think I used an Eon rapid charger as well. So I've used a few different networks myself and not had any issues. But I think that it depends when you got your car as well. So there may be a more up-to-date version of software than the car was built with. Now, normally MG have told dealers, when you're doing a PDI, don't update any ECUs unless we told you otherwise, because the server that we connect to get updates can sometimes have Chinese versions of software on there, which may be a more modern, a newer version number of software, but they won't actually be for the UK markets. They may cause other issues if you were to install them. It may well be that because of that information, dealers haven't checked software versions at PDI because they're not bothered to update them. There is actually some new software updates for the ZS EV facelift for the EVCC charger and the BMS. If you're unsure, if you take your car to the dealership and ask them to do an update, I think they did say just before the weekend, obviously it's Bang Bloody Weekend, it might be tomorrow when it comes out, I'll just double check if they've put anything out to the dealer network yet.
Yes.
They were going to say that they're going to put communication out saying, could you please check these particular ECUs and make sure they're the latest version, because it could be that there's an old version of software that's kicking around that's not working properly. When the cars come into the country in March, the anticipation is that they would have that latest version of software from the factory. However, it might be because they've been sat waiting for parts or whatever that they've not been done. So, if in doubt, speak to your dealer. There are some newer versions of software. Make sure they're on there. I think Vince on the forum said that he'd had another software update and that had cured the issues. So, it's difficult for dealers because we only usually update software if told to do by MG, because the last thing you want to do is do an update that causes a problem. But if MG don't know that the software that's coming on the cars from the factory is out of date, then they wouldn't know to tell us. So.
It's a bit of an odd one for me. About 3 miles up the road, I've got a GridServe at Peace Pottage, and they've got 2 pumps there, a Chelimo and a CCS. That works fine. The other one is 2 CCS. Won't work. The other cars are fine. It's just that one pump.
Which fails to initialize the charge, or?
I'm not sure. All I know is I've tried and reset it, and it isn't just me. Another local person who belongs to the Sussex EV group has mentioned it as well. She also drives a ZS, so exactly the same problem.
That's weird. But have you tried reporting it to the GridServe at all?
No. Did I?
It could be something as simple as their software on their chargers. There's 2 different versions of software, perhaps, and that their chargers.
Possibly, but as I say, it just seemed to be. Well, I only know 2 ZSs.
Yeah.
Other cars seem to charge anything fine.
I had a similar thing this weekend. I've just driven back 230 miles this afternoon. And I stopped to charge going down when I was going down on Thursday last week, and it was a GridServe, and I pulled in Bristol, it was near Bristol. I pulled in to charge, and there was a guy already stood there with this charger. It had 2 pumps on it. It was a grid server again. And he said it'll only work one at a time.
Yeah,
He said,
exactly.
He'd been waiting, and he said he couldn't charge because somebody else was on the other one that I was just about to plug in.
Yeah,
I was into it.
Yeah, I was going to say I had that situation at Potter's Bar, and I rang GridServe, was answered very, very quickly. So the service was really good on that. And I said, look, I'm here at this one, and I just can't get the pump to operate. And she says to me, well, is the other one in use? And I said, yeah. She says, right. Well, the thing is, we're waiting on an update for the software. We've got the new pumps in, which have got double heads, but only one at a time will work until the software's been upgraded and it's moved up to the new version.
That's exactly
And
what I was
there was no notice on the machine that said that that was only operating one.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was told, because I rang and asked the same question, and he said, yeah, that's correct. You can only use one at a time at the moment. As in, there was 4 pumps.
When they fitted these pumps, it was documented that they said that they can both charge off the same pump, but not at the moment. They turned that facility off at the moment until they're doing data testing and whatnot. And so it will come, but not yet.
Yeah, it will come. I mean, the one at Rugby's already set up like that now. The big one at Rugby, that's already set up. They work two on a pump, no problem at all. But the ones up and down the motorway, they're not working yet. They're not ready yet. So there is an issue though, but they're working on it. I know that for a fact because they've told me that twice now. They're working on it.
I think we could have an episode of the podcast just on chargers. You know that the amount of
good point, Dave.
That'd be heated.
I know, but I mean, yeah, just for you could go through every make of charger and every supplier of chargers. It's just potluck sometimes, and
yeah.
I mean, I had issues with Pod Point. The 7 kilowatt ones at my local Sainsbury's. Yeah. And I noticed they were out of action, and there was down out of the 2 posts, four charge points, and only one of them operating. And so I went up there, and I didn't need to charge it, but I noticed that they were not working. So I called customer services, reported to them. They kept me updated, and it took a couple of weeks, but now they're all up and running and working. Now, I just hear on the forum, lots of people just saying, oh, it doesn't work, there's a problem with it and that. Well, I just wonder whether people actually take the trouble to ring customer services and tell them about it. Because it's not, their systems are not that sophisticated to track it and monitor what's going on.
In Redhill, they got a Sainsbury's there with 4 points. One of them hasn't worked for over a year. And it's been commented on ZapMaps. Loads and loads of times. I've phoned them umpteen times, and they just say, yes, we're waiting on Sainsbury's to give us authorization to go there.
Well, I religiously phone if the charger's not working. We are either blessed or cursed in Scotland.
Or email, one or the other, yeah. Definitely. You've got to get to them.
And I remember Miles saying it once before, but one of the really old E-Volts, terrible for just getting recognition. It just doesn't do the handshake at all.
Yeah, no, just I asked if there was a new version of software for the E-Volt chargers so that it would bring it up to spec with the more modern cars, but no. So we're replacing our E-Volt charger at Blackpool with a new ABB unit actually.
I've never seen one of an E-Volt.
Oh, they're terrible. You're lucky.
E-Volt were used, weren't they? A lot of them were used in Scotland for the charger cars. Yeah, Charge Place Scotland. Yeah, and they're being replaced now, aren't they? But they were one of the cheaper at the time rapid chargers which had triple heads on them. So that's why we got it at Blackpool, because it was like, I say it was cheaper. It was like 25 grand still. It wasn't cheap by any means, but it was like less. The next nearest was 32. So we're like, oh, we'll go for 25 then. But yeah, it's not been the best.
Well, going back to the point that Steve was making, I phone and say, this isn't working, why not? And this girl one day said, can you just come back out, reconnect? But as you reconnect, can you just push your nozzle left and right a bit?
Give it a wiggle.
Give it a wiggle. She actually said, give it a wiggle, and it worked.
Yes. Yeah, well, it can happen.
I think a future episode on charging, yeah, it would be quite X-rated.
All right. Yeah, well, I know Stuart's listening in the background. That's a whole program on charging.
Yeah. I've never had a problem with charging, quite honestly. The only problem I ever had was one night coming back from London, and the whole of the grid serve system at Rugby was offline. The whole lot wasn't working, all lot of them. Apart from the testers, they were still working. And I had to continue up the motorway. I got to Colby services. There's 8 Instavolts there. I pulled into the services, and the N1 was available, and I thought, oh, well, I'm lucky. So anyway, I drove onto it, plugged in. I was down to about 16 or 17% of charge. I plugged in, and it would not charge any faster than 21, 22%. It would not go above 21 or 22 kilowatts. That was it. It wouldn't take anything else at all. And I looked at the other pumps, and a lot of them was charging at 40, 45. But that one would not go above 21, 22. And that's the only time I've ever had a problem. I persevered with it, went and got a coffee and just sat there a bit longer waiting for a bit of charging. I had no options really. Because there was, with the grid serve system being completely out at Rugby, there was a queue. Oh, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable that night because that was down and everybody's heading up towards those to get charged there. But it was, that's the only time they had a problem with the charging, quite honestly. It's the only time they had a problem.
I think we'll get one of our voting polls going on whether you want one on just chargers, because I think I could speak for 40 minutes on it. Dear me. Anyway, we better crack on a wee bit because there's also, we're wanting to cover over-the-air updates. I know you touched on it slightly there, Miles, but what is the situation with over-the-air updates for the new ZS EVs?
So when the car was launched, I went to the press launch in London. I spoke to one of the product representative from MG, and he said about over-the-air updates, and I said, what updates can it do over the air? Can it update every ECU on the car? You know, if there needs a BMS update, for example, in the future, is that possible to do over the air? He said, yes, it is. And then I was in a conversation with the MG engineer this last week about the rapid charging thing, and said, you know, well, if some updates, can you just push the updates out to the customers? You know, if it hasn't had the update for the, you know, that's causing the problem with bricking on rapid chargers, can you just push that out by over the air? He says, oh no, you can't do that. I said, well, why? He says, because the over the air updates only work for the infotainment system. I said, oh, this is brand new information, completely contrary to what I was told at the product launch when I specifically asked the question. He said, yeah, it's the infotainment system can update itself over the air, but it can't actually do map updates. It can basically just give itself a software update because it's running on Google, because it's an Android tablet effectively strapped to the dashboard. That can receive its own over the security updates and things, but it can't actually update anything major on the car at all. So it can't. So if your car needs a BMS update or whatever else, it's going to need to go back into the dealership. Which I suppose is good news for our service department because they won't be twiddling their thumbs as much. But at the same time, if you advertise it can do over the air updates and all it can actually do is not really anything at all, apart from a software update for the nav unit that's not even a map update, then I think that it's perhaps stretching it a bit. But yeah, so those of you that were thinking you're going to have Tesla style over the air updates, or my wife's got a Volvo XC40 and that just received a software update the other day, which bricked the car for an hour and a half whilst it installed it. You couldn't drive the bloody thing for an hour and a half whilst it was. So I'm glad I did it at the end of our day driving rather than in the morning. Shouldn't like that at 7:30 in the morning trying to get to work. But with that update, that gave you a few more miles range because it changed the battery loading parameters. It gave you a new version of software. You can now have Android, you know, Amazon Music on there and all this sort of stuff. It was all done through the infotainment system, but that's because it controls the whole brain of the car through that, whereas the ZS can't do that. So yeah, so in a change to our previously advertised format, over-the-air updates aren't over the air.
I'm joining in with Nasty. I'm disappointed to hear that because I thought it was one of the really good advantages of the new version.
Yeah, it's I say completely contrary to what we were told before. Just picking up a question in the chat on YouTube. Wooly, you asked about tow bars. I've put a link in the chat to where you can get tow bars for the ZS EV facelift. So he says, wondering if the tow bars are available for the ZS EV Trophy Connect. I've sent a link. You buy them directly from Witter tow bars. So MG don't actually supply and install tow bars anymore. They were just buying them from Witter anyway, and so it was just making the cost more expensive. So the new thing is that you basically.
I think the moderator bot has deleted the link because it hasn't come up.
Oh, right, okay. Well, if you go to witter-towbars.co.uk, and if you go in there, put in the car registration number, you can just select MG ZS EV. They call it the MCE, the mid-change enhancement, including facelift electric vehicle. So you click on that version, you'll see there's a range of tow bar or hitch thing you can have there, and that means, oh yeah, we'll see that. That's cool. Yeah. And they can install they can install it on your driveway at home. So they get a mobile technician to come out and fit it for you, if you wish. So that's all.
Okay, so that's just covered that. As I said, there's a few folk coming back about the OTA updates, so that I don't suppose you're too surprised to hear that, Miles.
No, I was disappointed very much myself because I specifically asked the question and was told otherwise. So yeah.
Okay, we'll change the running order just a wee bit, give you a chance to clear your throat a wee bit. And Mike, I was wondering if you just wanted to give us a couple of minutes on how you got on going to Paris, because obviously you'd have been charging in French chargers there.
Yes, so so the first two chargers was GridServe in the UK, and then the final charger at the hotel was Ionity. Not Ionity, Intervolt at 50 pence. Then once I got to France, the first charger was Ionity. With France, they don't charge per kilowatt, they charge per minute if you use your credit cards. So if you're in France, use the Octopus electric juice network card, and then it charges you per kilowatt onto your utility bill. And then there was one more charge on another rapid Total, and I had to use the Shell. Oh, that's not coming up on the green screen. The Shell recharge card to activate that, but unfortunately that was per minute charging, so that was to top up the battery enough to get to Disneyland. Since February, they've upgraded the amount of chargers at Disneyland drastically. Originally, there was only 4 chargers for the whole theme park, and now there's still 4 in the main car park, but there's about 18 at New York, Cheyenne, and Newport Bay hotels, with 4 of them being disabled and EV charging. So you've got to be a blue badge user to actually park in it. And it's just a 11 kilowatt charger, so tops up the battery slowly. So you just plug it in, stay there, have fun, spend a lot of money, ride Space Mountain a few times, and then once your trip is finished, then unplug, you got fully charged car, and you just head back. And the other highlight was on the way back, I found the Ionity charger was on free vend. So happy days, that saved me
we're all like
15
that.
quid.
All love a free charge.
Oh, yes.
4 chargers for the whole of Disneyland. That's
so 4
pretty
down. No, actually, 5 rapid charges, but they weren't long. They were only about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes each time, because I was doing more just smaller rapids, so that if I got to the charger and it didn't work, I still had range to then go off piste and try and find a charger. But luckily, every single one worked, and except for the Total charger, all sites had multiple chargers, which was advantage.
And is it a rumour or is it true that service stations, service stops and French motorways have all got three pin, well, the equivalent of 3-pin plugs you can granny charge?
I couldn't see them there.
Well,
But the first service station I used, which had Ionity, on the opposite side, it had the Tesla superchargers. If they did have 3-pin plugs, they were well hidden. The next service station I went to, which had the Total charger, it only had the one charger there, but there was a lot of work going on at that service station. So if there was a 3-pin plug, probably the builders are using it.
But you didn't get stuck. That's the main thing.
No, not
Good.
got stuck. It was literally, as long as you, I would say in France, top up regularly, then you're pretty much fine. But just make sure you got the right cards. The Shell recharge cards pretty much is accepted by about 80%, 90%. The Octopus Energy card, 40%, but it's cheaper if you can use that card. And I think there is another card out there which does about 95, but it's a little bit more expensive because I believe they charge a 50p service charge every time you use it.
Well, yeah, it's worth knowing, and maybe sometime when we've got John on from Norway, and we'll get more of an insight of destination driving in other countries as well. So it's interesting to know what everybody's doing. So thanks for that, Mike, and hope you had a good break.
Yes, it was very good. But one thing's for sure, don't use your credit cards on IONT in France. You will be paying through the nose.
Right.
I suppose the benefit of per minute charging is that you don't get people hogging the chargers for long periods of time.
So,
That is true, but when your car's
And
struggling,
I suppose it really sort of helps people like your if you're in a Tesla Model 3 or a Kia EV6 that can charge like 180 kilowatts, then per minute charging, you'd skip onto it like a EV6 onto an IoT charger. 18 minutes, you've got an extra sort of 60 kilowatts, 60 kilowatt hours in your battery, aren't you? So it's a sort of win-win for them, but it's just for everybody else. It's imagine with an old 24 kilowatt hour Leaf, well, you can't use yes, there can you? So yeah, okay.
with Leaf, there was one charger that supported CHAdeMO, but it was broken, and it had a cheaper charging rate. So a lot of people uses that, but it was broken, so they were gone.
Okay.
Just before you move on, Dave.
Yeah.
I'm just before you move on. Just before you move on, what's going back to what Miles was talking about with the delivery issues. John's written that tonight on the forum, he just wrote that the situation in Norway is no different with delivery than what it is here. It's just as bad. It's just the same. They've got the same problems with delivery in Norway, so no different for them. Just
Yeah.
the same world over, I think.
Good. Thanks for that. Great. Miles, you were at Fully Charged at the weekend, is that correct?
I was there on Saturday, yeah. Drove down Friday at the show on Saturday and then drove back Sunday. Managed to get a Premier Inn down at Basingstoke for like £50 a night. So I thought, well, it's a 5-hour drive for me, so it's a bit of a trek. It's 240 miles each way. So
Yeah, I did it last year.
so I thought, I'll get a cheap hotel and, up ready and up and Epsom on the Saturday morning, and then on the Sunday, and then rest easy on the Saturday night. And then Sunday you've got the day to come back. So it worked quite well, to be fair. the show was very, very busy. I was there on the Saturday, which was the best weather day, I think, in terms of the 3-day event. Packed everywhere. I didn't plan on getting I didn't plan on having any test drives, which is a good job because I think by 11 o'clock we'd all booked up with every manufacturer. The test drive was busy. One of my friends had got there slightly before me, and he had a test drive in a Nissan Leaf and a Ford Mustang Mach-E. He's already got a Nissan Leaf old version out. I'm not sure why he bothered test driving the new version. It's basically the same thing with a bigger battery. But I said it'd be better off trying the Area or something like that, especially since he's got a new job which pays megabucks. Yeah, so it was good. I didn't actually get to any of the conference hall sort of setting talks because I was too busy going around to the stands and things. MG stand looked busy from a distance. I didn't get too close. They only had the HS FEV, I think, in front of the actual MG stand. The rest of the cars, all the MG5s and ZSs were all out back on the test track. So if you wanted to see an MG ZS EV facelift or MG5, that's what you had to go for a test drive for. So they were busy. A couple of car manufacturers that were new to the marketplace, which were interesting to see. So there was Aura, had the Aura Cat there. It's another Chinese manufacturer, and we've got a sister forum, auraevs.com, where we're starting to talk about those. The only bad news from there is that, again, due to shortages of components and parts in general, they're now thinking that they're going to have a limited launch availability with something like 3,000 cars this year, rather than the sort of 5,000 to 6,000 they were hoping for, and that the cars aren't probably going to hit until September, October time, rather than sort of now they were hoping for originally. So everything's taken a bit of a delay there as well. Another example, though, of a big manufacturer that manufactures its own batteries that still can't produce the cars quick enough. And then there was Nobe, I think it's pronounced, Nobe N-O-B-E G100 GT. It was a sort of retro-looking three-wheeled. I don't know how to describe it really. It's sort of, I don't know, it's got echoes of a lot of different sort of 60s cars in there. It's a really pretty looking car. They were talking about a launch price of $40,000, which is about £32,000, which would be quite interesting. It weighs, it's all sort of like carbon fiber and lightweight, so it weighs about 800 kilos, which for an EV is nothing. So it has a 120 kilowatt motor, which is about 160 brake horsepower, in something that weighs less than a ton. I think would be quite entertaining, particularly with three wheels. But yeah, so the Nobe GT100, but I don't know, they had two cars on the show, and like a lot of these new car companies, you do wonder whether it's just a bit of a GoFundMe, Indiegogo style, let's build a couple of mock-ups and see if we can actually get some funding through. The whole sort of, I suppose we've seen quite a lot of these in the EV marketplace with various different brands over the years that have come to market with something that looks good, sounds good, but doesn't actually ever seem to get built. I know we're looking at the electric brands Xbus. We were considering that as a brand to have a dealership for, and they've pushed back the deliveries up until the end of next year. And we think, well, that's a long time off. And also, you're claiming that a 20 kilowatt hour battery is going to give you 200 kilometers range. Something doesn't stack up, So I think that there's, people can make things sound good on paper, and they can make a nice little mock-up model, but I think that the proof is in production. And I think that that's one thing that I'm quite optimistic about the MG4, is that MG's shown that it can build cars now. It's shown it can build good electric cars at a good price. And so if it continues that, and with the new MG4, I think that's why I've got a bit more confidence in that than perhaps I do in some of the other startup companies that are coming with a similar sized or similar cost product.
You know, a couple of folk agreeing with you, Miles, that the Aura Cat was a showstopper at the show. Certainly, I've seen it on the forum, and some of the videos I've seen. It certainly looks a nice wee car. It's
The Aura Cat is I think what perhaps doesn't get conveyed well in photos, and you saw at the show really well, was that the build quality is exceptional on it. And one thing that people pick at with, well, they have picked at with the MGs, with the MG5 and the MG ZS, is that they feel that the interior quality lets the car, or certain aspects of the quality, certain plastics are scratchy, or certain fabrics are not leather, for example, you know, and things like that. And with the Aura Cat, the interior honestly feels like, I'll tell you what there was there. There was at the show, there was the Aura Cat, and there was also Genesis were there with their electric cars. So Genesis is like Hyundai's Lexus. It's like a high-end brand, a bit like Infiniti. Nissan's got Infiniti, Toyota's got Lexus, Hyundai has Genesis. And Genesis is not being sold through a dealer format in the UK, which is a shame, because I'd really like to have a Genesis dealership. Instead, they're doing it as sort of like a bespoke service where they'll bring the car to you for a test drive. If you can't need the service, they'll bring a covered transporter to your house, pick it up, take it away, service it, and bring it back to you. It's pick and span. So they're working on that sort of end of the market. But their car's sort of £65,000. I think the white one that was on display was £75,000. And the interior of that £75,000 Genesis was very, very similar to the Aura Cat in terms of the quilted leather seats, the fit and finish of the dials and the features and everything else inside the car. So that's why the Aura Cat for me was, well, it looks like it's going to be a winner in terms of, you know, I think in terms of the overall package. Sure, it's a smaller car, you know, it's a ID3, again, sort of size car. It's going to be a competitor for the MG4.
The prices, Miles?
So initially they're talking about the prices being around 25,000, but I think it's actually going to get, for the launch model, I think they're going to concentrate on a high specification, but with a smaller battery pack, I think. So I think they're hoping that that's going to come in under the government grant. So it's probably going to be a retail of around 30 to 30,500 after the government grant in the UK. There will be a cheaper cut down version effectively in the future. But I think for this initial few cars that they can get in this year, I think they want them all to be the highest spec. For whatever reason, presumably. That's what they're able to get bits for and produce well.
Very good.
Miles, did you get a look at the VW Buzz?
I didn't get a look inside it myself. I looked around the outside of it. There was a bit of a queue to get in it. Have a look at it. I'll be honest, it's a fancy looking exterior, but the interior looks exactly the same as most VWs.
Yeah.
So in terms of, like, you know, I mean, we've got Citroen and Vauxhall franchises. So we've got the Vivaro electric and the Citroen equivalent. And both of those have got interiors which, you know, if you were to colour them in very, very light coloured fabric with a hint of green in the middle, would look pretty much identical. There wasn't anything revolutionary in the way that the seats folded or anything like that. You know, it was all just like a van with seats nailed in it. So I wasn't blown away by the interior quality of it. Exterior, yeah, it looks like an updated transporter. And the VW, you know, guys are going to lap it up, because anything with a VW badge on, they'll think is worth twice as much as anything else.
Yeah, I grew up with Volkswagen, so I'm immediately buzzing when it came out.
Yeah, no, it's but the same way, you know, you see people, you know, paying £20,000 for a 200,000 mile transporter just because it's got some folding seats nailed in the back of it. And you think, well, is it really worth that? You know, is it really worth that? Probably not, is it? So I think that, I think that, yeah, it'll do very well as a Caravelle replacement. I wouldn't be putting my deposit down on it. I'd probably look to save some money and go for something from another brand. I don't think the range is amazing for it, you know, for the size of vehicle either. Even with a bigger battery, you know, I think that there's a lot of it's not the most aerodynamic vehicle you're ever going to find, is it? So it's not ever going to set the world alight in terms of range. For me, yeah, no, I don't massively like that. But...
It's a cult vehicle.
Yes, it is absolutely a cult vehicle. If you
It'll
love
for
them,
that
you're going to
reason.
want one.
So thanks, Miles. It was worth going to. You enjoyed it?
Yeah, my son thought it was fantastic as well. I took an 11-year-old son with me, so he must have sat in every single vehicle there was. Audi GTs, you know, he doesn't ask first, so he just got in the Genesis and everything else. So yeah, he sat in the electric classic cars DeLorean that they converted. One of the things that struck me actually was there's so many conversion companies now that we're able to do, and there's a converted like Mark II Golf GTI.
Yeah, there's a lot more.
So yeah, like much more achievable, because yes, electric classic cars with their vintage voltage TV program do these, you know, £100,000 conversions on £150,000 Ferraris, and that's very impressive. But at the same time, it's quite nice to see that you've got a Golf GTI with an old Leaf drivetrain nailed in it, and it works great, and it costs significantly less. So I think that there will be a market in the coming years for these conversions, for people to get, you know,
Agreed.
modern classics, or, you know, just there's was it the there's a classic car show, like vehicles, was it uninspiring vehicles for boring people, something like that. It's basically it's just mundane cars that we all grew up with, that, you know, like Montegos, you know what I mean, or stuff like that. It's stuff that you wouldn't give a second look to, but at the same time, it's still quite nice that there's a couple on the road because it reminds you of your childhood or whatever, so, or your first car. So like at the classic car show I was at today with my son, there was there's all sorts of, you know, there was Lamborghinis, there were Ferraris, there was, you know, loads of Mustangs and, you know, all that sort of stuff. And then there was also, you know, there was a Skoda 120 Estelle, or there was a, you know, all these sort of like, wasn't this time, but before there's been like a Yugo 45. And it's like, you know, it's like cars like that, you know, it's nice to have one or two examples around, isn't it, just to remind people of it. And if they get
Skoda still.
Yeah. But you know, if you make them electric so they don't break down, then that's even better, isn't it? You know, so you've got the sort of the old body lines, you've got the old sort of style things. I'm all for that. I think that, you know, if you can do that, crucially, the idea is that it would cost significantly less. I was charging the car on the way back from the lakes over Easter. I came back and stopped at Preston, rapid charge next to a Starbucks. And when I got there, there's two chargers and both been used. One was a VW ID3 and the other one was blocked by a Porsche Turbo 1980s thing. I was like, oh, for God's sake, look at it. And I saw the green strip on his number plate. And I went up and spoke to him. It turns out he works for the company that makes the conversions that electric cars use on the TV program. So they had a 1980s Porsche Turbo, which in its own right, you know, as a appreciating classic, is probably worth about £100,000 now. And then they put their conversion into it, which gave it a Tesla motor and 400 brake horsepower and all-wheel drive. It was a Tesla Ludicrous, basically bolted into a Porsche, an old Porsche.
Yeah.
It's complete bolt-in, bolt-out job, so you can put it back to standard if you wanted to. You're not chopping any engine mounts off and stuff. It all bolts into the same bits. But the conversion cost was £120,000. So you've got something that costs more than most semi-detached houses, you know, driving down the road. Well, for me, whilst I applaud their ingenuity and their engineering skill, I think that there's quite a lot of more to be said for if someone can get a £5,000 conversion to bolt a Leaf drivetrain into an old Peugeot and, you know, keep that going a bit longer. But that's me being a socialist.
Well, Fully Charged show recently did this feature, didn't they? On
Going to France, yeah.
in France,
Yeah,
that was interesting.
They did.
Because one of the, I think probably one of the most practical cars I owned in the past 20 years, which was really comfortable as well, was it's a Renault Scenic Grand Scenic, loads of space, could have 7 seats and things like that, but you could have done away. We never used the back seats that are in the boot, but it was just phenomenal for the amount of stuff you could just stuff into it. And the seats you were just like floating on air. Brilliant.
Yeah, we used to have a Grand Scenic as well, 7-seater, like 2010, I think it was, we had it. And you're right, they're brilliant for just chucking everything in. I'm a big fan of vans. And I know that, like you said, we just said about the VW bus, but I think that a van is a very practical thing. I'd quite like, I suppose it's not right to say that I'd like to own one, because I probably wouldn't like to actually admit it, but I'd like a Berlingo. Like, that is the perfect vehicle for a lot of people, because you've got a massive boot, loads of seats, comfy enough. You don't need to, and the electric version goes like, well, it goes like an electric car.
Yeah,
So,
but the diesel one was horrible.
yeah. But the electric Berlingo, it goes really well. So it's like cars like that with a lot of interior space. I did a review of the Vauxhall Combo electric recently. I said, it's not the car you want, but it's probably the car that ticks all the boxes in terms of, it ticks every box apart from the desirability, because it's got the performance, in the electric version. It's got the space. It's got all the stuff you need for all your kid, to take your kids' stuff away in.
It does the job.
Dogs. It's got everything on there. It's just that it looks like it was drawn by a 3-year-old.
Yeah. I guess we all be careful, because this is the MG EVs forum.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just got back a bit.
We're going off piece a bit.
We'll have Stuart on our necks.
Les, when they bring out the Austin Allegro electric version, I'm out of here, I'll tell you. Right, guys, we better move on. I did say it was going to be an extended version tonight, but we are gobbling up our kind. Sorry, I was going to dump on you once again. You've mentioned the MG4 several times. A couple of podcasts ago, you said there was going to be an MG3 electric. What's going on?
So the latest information we have is the MG4 is coming to the UK market this year. And I say it should hopefully be announced for Q4 of 2022. So that sort of puts us on October-ish. There is news, and has been news on the car news websites, Auto Express, etc., about the Cyberster, the 2-seater or 2+2 sports car that is making its way to production for next year, and that will be announced either at the end of this year or start of next year to the UK market, and looks quite a lot like the concept car that was shown a couple of years ago. And then there's the MG3 will get a refresh, but probably not till the very end of 2023, start of 2024. So the smallest of the MG models that we currently do will be the MG4 when it comes out. The MG3 isn't going to be until, I say, very end of next year.
Right.
And then
That's an electric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll only be electric from that point.
Right.
And then MG is hoping to be completely electric by 2025. So the HS is due an upgrade. So that at that point we'll probably have that morph into the Marvel R facelift. And of course with the MG5 facelift due as well. So there's quite a few new cars due. So by the end of next year, we'll go from having MG3, ZS, MG5 and HS to also have the MG4 and the Cyberster, and then potentially Marvel R coming at the end of next year as well, I think. So yeah, it's there's going to be quite a few models out there, and quite a few. I've just got no details of any pricing of anything at the moment and like that, but MG4 will be the next one to keep our eyes on too.
Okay, thanks for that. And the last topic we'll have time to cover tonight, and I can just hear everybody going to be pretty exasperated. As we say, we all know utility costs are going up, but has anybody been stung by the 57 pence per kilowatt hour for Instavolt yet?
So I was just doing a quick survey actually the day of public rapid charging tariffs. Can I just share my screen with you guys and see if this is the question, can I share my screen with you? Let's see, share screen. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Cool. Let's see if I can.
Yeah,
okay, there we go.
yeah,
Okay.
it's fine.
Right, so public rapid charging tariffs. I pulled this up the other day. So grid serves currently the cheapest at 39 pence per kilowatt hour. And I've put how much for 40 kilowatts. I thought if it's a 51 kilowatt hour battery and you're doing sort of up to 80%, that gives you sort of 40 kilowatt hours you'll be adding. So it's, roughly sort of, I suppose, 45, 50 minutes on a charger. Grid serve, it costs £15.60. Osprey be £19.60. MFG is the same. BP Pulse be 20 quid, so very similar. Shell Recharge, £22. Instavolt at now 58 pence, so with £23.20. And Ionergy is still king in the back at £27.60. So comparing that with what you'd pay for charging at home, the current capped rate from the government is 28 pence per kilowatt hour. So that would work out as £11.20.
Oh,
Oh no, is it off the bottom of the page? Right, 1 second. Let's if I put it there. Can you see that?
That's good.
yeah, that's good.
So scroll off there. So yeah, charging at home 28 pence per kilowatt hour. Works out £11.20 for 40 kilowatt hours. If you're charging at home off peak, on Go, the new tariff, the Octopus Go tariff is 7.5 pence per kilowatt hour, so it costs you £3 in that time. Your cost per mile, therefore, based if you're able to get 4 miles per kilowatt hour, which is a bit of a stretch for our cars on the motorway, but still, means that on Ionity you'll be paying 17 pence per mile. Sorry. Incidentally, I'm currently driving a petrol Qashqai. Because
Off with him.
they've sold electric cars. They've sold all electric cars, and I haven't got a chance to get into an electric car until one comes in stock. So I'm driving a petrol Qashqai. So I went to fully charged in a petrol Qashqai, and it was averaging 40 miles per gallon, which works out as around 19 pence per mile based on the current fuel costs.
Can we add
So
one to
even-
that, Miles?
Sorry.
Miles, can we add one to that? Can we add one to it? What's not on there from what I can see, because I've used it twice this weekend. Once at both the supermarkets, I must admit, one was at Tesco, one
Oh,
was
Pod
at
Point, you mean?
Pod Point, 26 pence, yeah.
26 pence. Yeah, well, that's true, but they're only Lidl's are only supposed to be. Apparently, they're only for shoppers, aren't they?
Well, this was something that was on the forum a while ago. Somebody put on there, and I've used it numerous times, and I've never had a problem. Never been an issue at all. Same with Tesco,
No.
never been an issue. Never been.
No,
an issue.
but I think it depends where you are. Because some Lidl's, I think, must have like ANPR cameras or whatever, and
Yeah.
that's why it was an issue for that guy. Because that one guy got a fine of 100 quid.
Yeah, no, I know the chap you're on about. I know the chap you're on about. I know. But it was. I've never had an issue with it. I used it this morning. I used Pod Point Rapid this morning at 26 pence per kilowatt, which is I thought was quite decent.
Yeah, well, 26 pence is less than the current, utility rate at home. So, so yeah, that's great if you can do that. One thing that I think it does, again, this is the socialist in me coming out, is that for people that can't charge at home, electric cars can be very, very expensive to run, and unfairly so. Because if you don't have the access to a home charger and you can only use public charging and you're being charged 39, 49, 69 pence per kilowatt hour, it makes a vast difference, doesn't it? So I think that the government needs to somehow step in and see that. I suppose one thing they could do is reduce the VAT rate to 5%, same as domestic bills. That'd save a little bit. But overall, I think that we need to. The presentation I was just showing, that was part of what I was doing with Motability operations for people who get cars through the higher rate living allowance on independence payments. And I was saying that look, we need to think about our users that a lot of users of Motability may be in flats or in council houses and things. They may not have the ability to get a charger on a driveway. They may not have a driveway to put a charger on. And so if you're going to suggest that you're going to put them into an electric car or incentivize them to go to an electric car, you need to have a charging solution available to them I think the Motability themselves are going to be having conversations with councils and things to try and increase.
Very true.
When I took on electric, my Motability, because I'm a Motability customer, the Motability were very, very, very helpful. They had lots of questions. Have you got a driveway? Is there somewhere for a charger? Do you know, how's your fuse box? They were very, very informative and brilliant when I started the journey. So,
yeah, no, they have been very good, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this training with them, is because they've got a number of members of staff who want to learn more. It's not a case they need to, but they want to learn more, and they want to, know more about the whole thing about, the whole life cycle of electric cars and how they fit into their fleet. So it's been interesting for me as well to do that sort of, to think more and make me think more about that sort of side of the market as well, and how we can come up with solutions for people that live in terraced houses or flats, and that how they can charge without crippling themselves financially by the cost of the public charging network. So
yeah, well, it's another whole subject around that as well, is accessibility when you're actually at a charge point, because there's the crash barriers around it that stop you bumping into the charger, means that a wheelchair can't get near it.
I've tweeted Grid Serve about this, about and coverage over these chargers and placement as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they've got their new big charging hub has got that catered for, because they've got special bays, haven't they, which are double width bays and flat surface all around it, and it's undercover and well lit. But that's just sort of one out of the 100 they plan to put in up and down the country. But it's a long
I think the whole thing, the whole conversation should start before they start building any of these things. Or it should have happened years ago as well, to be fair. They shouldn't have just gone. It shouldn't take 10 years of electric cars for the people to go, oh yeah, people in wheelchairs might want to drive one of these as well.
Yeah.
It should have been thought about from day one as to, okay, how can we make, this is a whole new piece of street architecture we're putting in. It's a completely new thing. We've got a free blank sheet of paper, let's get up and let's work for something that's accessible for all. And no, what they did instead was they came up with stuff that was the cheapest box they could nail together usually, and then they work out that actually going back and changing it all is what cost the money.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it is a really good topic for a podcast. Just the whole destination charger, and I think it was Jennifer that raised a point once that when you get to a charger, it's the back of an industrial estate that's brutally lit.
Right. Yeah. Especially for women.
That's not great in this day and age, is it?
No, not for women on their own anyway, definitely not.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, the time is creeping on. This has been the longest podcast we've ever done, but it was to catch up on a lot of time. So I hope we've covered everything, I think. Sorry, guys, there's a few things come up in the chat. We're just not going to get a chance to cover that, but we'll roll it into the next podcast and cover off things. So before we go, as ever, there's a few things I want to bring to everybody's attention. Yes, Miles mentioned it earlier, the Ora electric car, the CAT, is coming to the UK soon, and there is our sister forum, rumours.com. Please look it up, and there is a bit of interest in the Ora CAT out there. Unsung heroes, many thanks to our moderators, Alb, A Real Human, and Coolum, who are helping to keep the forum running smoothly. We really do appreciate your help, guys. Thank you. If you'd like to support us, please consider the MG EV Forum Premier membership. For only £3 a month, it'll give you the Premier membership badge, the ability to upload a profile banner, the ability to select MG Red theme, and the discount code for any MG EV merchandise. And good job, Stuart, some really good new t-shirts and logos being added to there. Thank you. So please have a look at our merchandise. There is quite a lot of new stuff. If you haven't been on for a wee while, they're completely new logos, new designs, etc. So please go on there. And if you become a Premier member, you can get your 10% discount. So without further ado, thanks everybody for contributing. Les, thank you. It's great to see you again.
Thank you, Dean.
Mike, good hearing from you, and thanks for that update about driving in France.
Good night, all. Yeah, thank you very much.
Steve, good to hear from you.
And you, too right.
Barry, great having you on board. I do hope we can call upon you for future podcasts.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. And Miles, thanks once again for all your input. And sorry, I was trying to protect your throat a wee bit, but yeah.
It's all right. I'm my own worst enemy.
Anyway,
I'll get the words out now.
we'll be back with another podcast very soon, everybody. Please click all the likes and subscribes. We do really appreciate that. Thanks and good night, everybody. And we'll see you at the next podcast. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Yes,
Bye.
bye.
Bye.